close your eyes for a moment. Picture this. You're standing before a pyramid under a star-streaked sky, the desert air cool against your skin. The massive stones loom like silent giants, their shadows pooling in the moonlight. The wind whispers, carrying echoes of ancient chants, the clink of chisels, the hum of a civilization that refused to let death win. Welcome to what the pharaohs knew about death, Egypt's eternal blueprint, a journey deep into the heart of a culture that didn't fear the grave, they engineered it. This isn't just a story about pyramids, it's about why they were built. It's about a people who saw death not as an ending, but as a transformation, a cosmic promotion, a doorway to divinity. So grab a seat, dim the lights, and let's step into the shadows of ancient Egypt, a world where death wasn't a defeat, but a masterpiece. Death as a technology in our modern world. Death feels like a wall, a full stop, a curtain drop. We avoid it, dread it, tuck it away in hospitals and euphemisms. But for the ancient Egyptians, death was something else entirely. It wasn't a wall, it was a bridge, a process, a technology. They didn't fear the end of life. They feared chaos, disorder, a universe unmoored. To them, death was a system to be mastered, a ritual to be choreographed, a journey to be mapped with the precision of a star chart. Imagine this, a civilization so obsessed with eternity that they spent their lives preparing for it. Every tomb, every spell, every golden mask was a piece of a grand machine designed to launch the soul into forever. At the heart of this machine was a story, a myth so powerful it shaped an empire for over 3,000 years. The story of Osiris, the god who died and rose again. The blueprint for every pharaoh's journey into the afterlife. The myth of Osiris, a cosmic constitution. Let's start with Osiris, the god of fertility, renewal, and the underworld. He wasn't just a deity, he was the cornerstone of Egyptian belief, a figure so central that every king, every peasant, every pyramid was built in his shadow. The myth goes like this. Osiris, beloved by his people, brought order to the Nile Valley. He gave them laws, crops, stability. But his brother Set, the embodiment of chaos, seethed with jealousy. Set didn't just kill Osiris, he obliterated him. In a cunning betrayal, Set tricked Osiris into a custom-made coffin, sealed it, and cast it into the Nile. But that wasn't enough. When the coffin washed ashore, Set found it, tore Osiris's body into pieces, and scattered them across Egypt. Enter Isis, Osiris's wife and sister, a goddess of magic and devotion. She scoured the land, collecting every piece of her husband's body, every piece except one, lost to a fish in the Nile's depths. With her sister Nephthys, Isis reassembled Osiris, wrapped him in linen, and breathed life back into him just long enough to conceive a son, Horus, the Avenger. Osiris didn't return to the living. He became something greater, the ruler of the underworld, a judge, a god, a symbol of resurrection. This wasn't just a fairy tale. It was Egypt's constitution, a metaphysical manual that defined their world. The myth taught them that death wasn't a loss, it was a process, a ritual of recovery, assembly, and rebirth. Every tomb, every mummified body, every spell carved into stone was a nod to Osiris's story. The pharaohs weren't just kings, they were Osiris in death, Horus in life, links in a cosmic chain that held the universe together. The pharaoh, a living god, a cosmic hinge. To be a pharaoh was to live on a razor's edge between heaven and earth. You weren't just a ruler, you were a principle, a human hinge connecting the mortal and the divine. The Egyptians called this Mat the cosmic order, the symmetry that kept the stars spinning, the Nile flowing, the world intact. The pharaoh was Mat made flesh. His breath sensed with the seasons, his decrees echoed the gods. His very existence was a ritual to keep chaos's at bay. His regalia told the story, the double crown, red for Lower Egypt and white for Upper Egypt, was more than a hat. It was a declaration of unity, a symbol of balance. The crook and flail in his hands weren't props. They were tools of shepherding and discipline, embodying his role as protector and enforcer. The uraeus, the cobra on his forehead, wasn't jewelry, it was Wadjet, the goddess of divine authority, ready to strike. Every gesture, every word, every step was scripted, deliberate, sacred. A misstep wasn't a mistake. It was a crack in the cosmos. When a pharaoh died, it wasn't just a man passing. It was a cosmic emergency. The world held its breath. The rituals began immediately, priests chanting, embalmers working, scribes inscribing spells. The tomb wasn't a grave, it was a launch pad, a resurrection machine. The pharaoh's soul is by personality and life force, had to navigate the do-it, the underworld, facing trials, demons, and the ultimate test, the weighing of the heart. The weighing of the heart, judgment of the soul. Picture a vast hall, shadowed and solemn, where the air hums with divine tension. This is the hall of Mat, where the soul faces judgment. The pharaoh's heart is placed on one side of a golden scale, on the other, a single feather, light as truth itself. If the heart is heavy burdened by lies, cruelty, or pride, it tips the scale, and Ammit, a monstrous blend of lion, hippo, and crocodile, waits to devour it, unraveling the world like a frayed tapestry. The pharaoh's job was to hold it together, not with swords or decrees, but with rituals so precise they could anchor the heavens. His day began with purification. Priests, silent and reverent, poured water from sacred wells into alabaster basins. This wasn't a bath, it was a consecration. His body was shaved smooth, every hair a potential disruption to divinity. His skin was anointed with myrrh and lotus oil, each scent a prayer, each drop aligned with a god. His eyes were painted with kohl to ward off disease, green malachite to channel Hathor's healing. His nails were trim, his hands blessed, his feet perfumed, not for vanity, but for cosmic calibration. The pharaoh's body wasn't his own, it was Egypt's, a vessel for Mat. His regalia was a theological machine. The double crown, red for Lower Egypt, white for Upper, merged the two lands into one. The croak and flail in his hands symbolized his dual role, shepherd and enforcer. The uraeus, the cobra on his brow, was Wadjet, goddess of divine authority, posed to strike. Every fold of his linen, woven in temples and measured in sacred cubits, was a declaration of order. To wear the wrong sash or speak the wrong word wasn't a faux pas, it was a cosmic error. As he stepped from palace to temple, his walk was a reenactment of creation itself. In Egyptian cosmology, the universe began when a god emerged from chaos onto a primordial mound. Each morning, the pharaoh echoed that act, moving through gardens and causeways lined with sphinxes, each step a stitch in the fabric of eternity. Inside the temple, he didn't worship, he worked Temples weren't churches. They were cosmic batteries, powering the gods through rituals. Priests, acting in his name, bathed divine statues, offered bread and beer, burned incense, sang hymns. These acts weren't devotion. They were maintenance. Without them, the gods could fade, and the world with them. The tomb, a resurrection engine. If the Pharaoh's life was a performance of Maat, his death was its crescendo. The tomb wasn't a grave, it was a machine, a cosmic launch pad designed to hurl the soul into eternity. The pyramids, those towering beacons of stone, were more than monuments. They were metaphysical infrastructure, built with a precision that could catch starlight. The Great Pyramid of Giza, for 181 feet tall, was aligned to true north with an accuracy we still marvel at. Its air shafts didn't ventilate, they pointed to the imperishable stars, guiding the soul to its celestial home. The tomb's walls were alive with purpose. Spales from the pyramid texts, and later the Book of the Dead were carved to navigate the Duat, the underworld. These weren't decorations, they were code, instructing the soul to speak, move, breathe in the afterlife. The king's chamber, with its granite sarcophagus, wasn't a resting place, it was a control room, a nexus where the pharaoh's personality and life force could reunite with his body. The cot, every angle, every measurement, echoed sacred ratios, tying the tomb to the cosmos. Mummification was the heart of this machine. This wasn't about preserving a corpse, it was about transforming it. Over 70 days, priests wearing jackal masks, symbols of Anubis, Lord of the Dead, worked with surgical precision. They made a sharp incision on the left side, removing the lungs, liver, stomach, and intestines, each placed in a canopic jar guarded by one of Horus's for sons, Imseti for the liver, Hapi for the lungs, Duamutef for the stomach, Kebasanuf for the intestines. The heart, the seat of the soul, was left in place or meant to be. Some mummies, like Tutankhamun's, mysteriously lack one, sparking debates about ritual error or symbolic substitution. The body was packed with natron, a natural salt, to draw out moisture, then wrapped in hundreds of yards of linen, each layer infused with resin and myrrh. Gold was applied not for show, but because the gods had flesh of gold, bones of silver, hair of lapis. Amulets were tucked between wrappings, the Eye of Horus for protection, the scarab for rebirth, the ankh for eternal life. The process wasn't preservation, it was resurrection, logistics, ensuring the soul could recognize its vessel. The economy of eternity. This cosmic machinery didn't run on faith alone, it required an army. The Pharaoh's afterlife was a national project, a divine economy that employed thousands. Priests, scribes, artisans, embalmers, laborers all had a role. The village of Deir el-Medina, near the Valley of the Kings, housed craftsmen who carved tombs with surgical precision. They worked in crews, drank beer, had weekends, and took pride in their craft, sometimes scrolling their names in tomb margins. Bushido was here. These weren't slaves. They were specialists, bathed in grain and status, stitching themselves into eternity. Temples, like the mortuary complexes tied to royal tombs, were economic powerhouses. They owned vast estates, managed livestock, and employed entire towns. Offerings of bread, beer, and incense weren't just gifts, they were fuel, keeping the pharaohs so active. Taxes weren't just for roads or armies, they were metaphysical insurance, ensuring the Nile flooded, the crops grew, the gods stayed awake. Every bushel of barley, every spool of linen was logged with bureaucratic precision. To fail was to risk cosmic imbalance. Even the dead had staff, shapty figurines, tiny carved workers with hoes and baskets were placed in tombs by the hundreds, activated by spells to labor in the afterlife's fields. In the earliest dynasties, real servants were sometimes buried with the king, drugged or strangled, honored to serve in eternity. By the Old Kingdom, this practice faded, replaced by symbolic figures, but the message was clear: no pharaoh bows alone the weight of divinity. The pharaoh's life was a rehearsal for death, but it wasn't glamorous. It was relentless. He couldn't sneeze in public, show weakness, or skip a ritual. His body belonged to the gods. His name divided into 5 titles: Horus, 2 ladies, Golden Horus, throne, birth, each a layer of his cosmic identity. To falter was to crack the universe. When he died, the handoff was critical. His son became Horus, the new king, while he became Osiris, ruler of the underworld. If the transition failed, Matt wavered, and chaos loomed. This wasn't ego, it was responsibility. The pharaoh wasn't a tyrant. He was a servant, bound by a schedule older than the Nile. His tomb wasn't a monument to pride. It was a cosmic keystone, and the people who built it, priests, artisans, mourners, weren't just workers. They were guardians of eternity, weaving a tapestry of spells, stone, and sacrifice to keep the stars aligned. Why this resonates: we don't live like pharaohs. We don't carve spells or weigh our hearts against feathers. But there's something hauntingly familiar in Egypt's obsession with preparation. Today, we chase immortality through photos, posts, legacies, digital pyramids to outlast us. The Egyptians remind us that eternity isn't a gift, it's a project. They didn't build tombs to escape death, they built them to navigate it, to make it meaningful, to refuse oblivion. As you watch this, maybe late at night with the glow of your screen, ask yourself, what's your map for the journey? What would you carve into the walls of time? In Part 3, we'll descend into the Valley of the Kings, explore the evolution of tombs, and uncover the human cost of eternity. Stay with us, the story's just beginning. Welcome back, traveler. You're standing at the edge of a sun-scorched valley, cliffs rising like ancient sentinels, the air thick with the weight of secrets. This is the Valley of the Kings, where Egypt's pharaohs traded towering pyramids for hidden chambers carved into the earth. In Part 2, we saw how the pharaoh's life was a ritual, his tomb a machine, his death a cosmic handoff. Now, and what the pharaohs knew about death, Egypt's eternal blueprint. Part 3, we descend into the rock, where tombs became stories, mummification became magic, and eternity became a labor of love and loss. Let's step into the shadows. From pyramids to passageways, the evolution of eternity. The pyramids were Egypt's first great defiance of death, colossal staircases to the stars, built to launch pharaohs into the heavens. But by the New Kingdom, around 1550 BCE, the game had changed. Pyramids were too visible, too tempting for thieves who saw gold where priests saw gods. So Egypt went underground. The Valley of the Kings, near the city of Thebes, became the new heart of the afterlife. Here, tombs were no longer monuments reaching for the sky, they were labyrinths, burrowed into cliffs, hidden from prying eyes. Imagine a tomb like that of Thutmose III, carved high into a cliff face, accessible only by ladder. Its oval chamber, painted with stars, wasn't a grave, it was a cosmos, or Amasis the Sixth's tomb. Its walls etched with the Book of Gates, a vivid guide to the underworld's trials. These weren't just burials, they were narratives, each corridor a chapter, each painting a spell. The journey was no longer vertical toward the stars, but horizontal, through a symbolic duet, the underworld of fire lakes, serpent rivers, and divine judges. The shift wasn't just practical, it was philosophical. The pyramid was a declaration. The rock-cut tomb was a story. Walls were painted with scenes of gods, solar boats, and sacred cows, guiding the soul through gates guarded by crocodile-headed deities. Every detail had purpose. Tutankhamun's tomb, though modest compared to others, was packed with gear chariots, thrones, amulets, even sandals, because the afterlife wasn't a vacation. It was a mission, and the soul needed equipment. Mummification, the alchemy of immortality. At the heart of every tomb was the body, not just preserved, but transformed. Mummification wasn't about freezing a corpse in time. It was about turning flesh into a divine vessel. The Egyptians called it Heka, magic, but it was magic with a blueprint. A 70-day ritual that blended science, spirituality, and theater. Picture the scene: a darkened chamber lit by flickering lamps, priests masked as Anubis, the jackal-headed god of the dead, move with silent precision. A blade slices the left side of the body, and the organs are removed: lungs, liver, stomach, intestines, each washed, dried with natron salt, and sealed in canopic jars. These jars, topped with the heads of horses, suns, human, baboon, jackal, falcon, weren't just containers. They were guardians, tying the body to the cosmos. The heart, the seat of the soul, was meant to stay, though sometimes, as with Tutankhamun, it vanished, sparking endless debates. Was it lost, replaced with a scarab amulet, or intentionally removed to protect the soul? The body was then packed with natron, left to dry for 40 days, its moisture wicked away to defy decay. Oils and resins followed, perfuming the skin with myrrh and frankincense, not just for preservation, but for divinity. The gods had flesh of gold, bones of silver. Hair of lapis gold was layered on nails, masks, amulets to align the body with the divine. The linen wrappings, sometimes hundreds of yards, were a cocoon, each layer inscribed with spells or scented with sacred oils. The Book of the Dead, or chapters of going forth by day, was tucked inside, a modular toolkit of spells, some to pass serpents, others to open gates, some to transform the soul into a falcon or lotus. The final act was the opening of the mouth, a ritual where priests touched the mummy's lips with a chisel, restoring its ability to eat, speak, breathe. This wasn't superstition, it was engineering, ensuring the soul's body could return to its cot, its body, without getting lost. If the soul couldn't recognize its vessel, it was doomed to wander, a ghost without anchor. For the pharaoh, this mattered most. His resurrection wasn't just personal, it was national. If he failed to rise, the Nile might not flood, the crops might wither, the cosmos might crack. The people behind the machine, this wasn't a solo act. The pharaoh's eternity was a team effort, a symphony of labor that spanned generations. At Deir el-Medina, a village near the Valley of the Kings, artisans lived and died to carve the afterlife. These weren't slaves, they were craftsmen, paid in grain and beer, raising families in the shadow of sacred cliffs. They painted spales with flawless symmetry, chiseled corridors aligned with stars, and sometimes left their mark. Senechum was here, scratched in a tomb's margin, a whisper of pride in eternity's blueprint. Priests were the conductors of this orchestra. Some sang hymns, others tended sacred animals, cats, ibises, crocodiles mummified as offerings or avatars. Embalmers, the surgeons of the spirit, worked with reverence, their hands guiding souls as much as bodies. Scribes copied spales by moonlight, their ink drawn from Sot and Gum. Mourners, often women called chantresses of Isis, wailed in choreographed grief, their tears a scripted offering to mirror Isis's sorrow or Osiris. Even guards had a role, protecting not just the tomb, but the integrity of the rituals. A mispronounced spell could cost a priest his hand. A miscopied text could exile a scribe. Eternity had a zero-tolerance policy. Then there were the shabti, tiny figurines buried by the hundreds, carved with hoes and baskets to work the afterlife's fields. In the earliest dynasties, real servants were sometimes buried with the kingdom, strangled, honored to serve forever. By the Old Kingdom, this practice faded, replaced by symbolic workers, but the idea remained. No pharaoh walked alone. The tomb was a hive, buzzing with the labor of priests, artisans, mourners, and guards, all part of a divine bureaucracy that kept the soul on track. The cost of forever. This machine didn't run on faith, it ran on resources. Temples, like the mortuary complexes tied to royal tombs, were economic giants, owning land, livestock, and labor. They weren't just holy sites, they were granaries, workshops, redistribution hubs. Taxes fed the system, not just for civic needs, but for metaphysical insurance. Every bushel of barley, every spool of linen was a vote for Maat, a hedge against chaos. The economy of death was circular. The living fed the temples fed the gods fed the Nile, and the Nile fed the people. The logistics were staggering. Linen came from flax fields in the delta. Cedar wood was imported from Lebanon. Bitumen for mummification might have come from the Dead Sea. Stones, some weighing 70 tons, were quarried hundreds of miles away, floated on barges, and hauled by teams tethered by ritual, not chains of workers, organized into crews with names like Friends of the West, took pride in their craft. They weren't building tombs for a king, they were building eternity for Egypt. The human heart of the machine, for all its grandeur, this system was human. The artisans of Deir el-Medina sang hymns to Hathor, drank beer, raised families. They left graffiti, not of rebellion, but of presence proof they were part of something bigger. The priests, for all their power, were bound by duty, their lives a cycle of chants and offerings. Even the pharaoh, divine as he was a man, his body shaved, anointed, watched, never truly his own. His dreams were scrutinized, his sleep a rehearsal for the underworld. To be a god was to be a prisoner of ritual. This wasn't about ego, it was about survival. The pharaoh's afterlife was Egypt's. If he reached the stars, so might the harvest. If he failed, chaos loomed. So the people built, painted, prayed, and rapped, not for glory, but for continuity. They didn't fear death, they feared forgetting. And in their spales, their stones, their golden masks, they wrote a story of defiance. We will not vanish. Why this matters now. We don't carve tombs into cliffs or wrap our dead in gold. But the Egyptians' obsession with preparation feels eerily familiar. We build digital legacies, archive memories, chase immortality through stories. Their tombs were maps. Our profiles are mirrors. They remind us that death isn't the end, it's what we make of it. What map are you drawing? What story will you leave behind? In Part 4, we'll uncover the cracks in this eternal machine corruption, tomb robbing, and the politics of succession that threaten to unravel it all. Stay with us, the shadows are deepening. Welcome back, traveler. You're standing in the Valley of the Kings, where the cliffs rise like silent judges guarding secrets carved into stone. The air is thick, not just with dust, but with the weight of betrayal, ambition, and greed. In Part 3, we descended into these hidden tombs, where mummification turned flesh into divinity, and artisans wove eternity into walls. But even the grandest machine can falter. This is what the Pharaohs knew about death, Egypt's eternal blueprint. Part 4, where we uncover the cracks that threaten Egypt's cosmic dream. Tomb robbers who stole more than gold, power struggles that shook the throne, and a divine system stretched to its breaking point. Let's step into the shadows where eternity began to fray. The shadow of theft, the plague of tomb robbing. Imagine a moonless night, the Valley of the Kings cloaked in silence. A flicker of torchlight betrays movement. A thief's chisel bites into a tomb's seal, stone crumbling like a whisper of betrayal. The valley was designed to be impregnable, its entrances hidden, its spales fierce. Death will come on swift wings to those who disturb the king's rest. But gold outshines fear. By the New Kingdom, around 1200 BCE, tomb robbing wasn't just a crime, it was an epidemic, a shadow industry that mocked the Pharaohs' eternal plans. Papyrus records, like the Amherst-Leiden papyrus from the reign of Ramesses IX, paint a vivid picture. Thieves, often organized gangs, targeted royal tombs for their treasures, golden masks, amulets, chariots, even the linen-wrapping mummies. One thief, Amenhotep, confessed to breaking into the tomb of King Sopkemsaf II, stripping the mummy of its golden breastplate and selling it for grain and copper. His gang wasn't alone. Workers from Deir el-Medina, the very artisans who carved these sacred spaces, knew their layouts, every false door, every hidden shaft. A bribed card, a loose seal, a forgotten passage, and eternity was undone. The spiritual toll was catastrophic. A plundered tomb wasn't just a theft. It was a desecration. The mummy was the soul's anchor. It's caught a home for the Ba and Ka. If it was destroyed, the soul could wander, lost in the duat, unable to reach the field of reeds. Spales defaced or stolen meant the soul faced serpents and gates without guidance. Priests fought back, moving mummies to secret caches, like the Deir el-Bahari cache, where 40 royal mummies were hidden in a cliffside tomb. But each robbery chipped at the cosmic order. If a pharaoh's eternity could be stolen, what held the universe together? Tomb robbing wasn't just about greed. It was a symptom of deeper rot. Economic instability in the late New Kingdom famine. Weak floods, foreign raids pushed desperate workers to betray their craft. Some robbers were priests, sworn to protect the dead, yet tempted by gold. Others were officials, exploiting their power for profit. The trials of these thieves, recorded in grim detail, show a system straining under its own weight. Punishments were brutal impalement, amputation, but the looting continued. Eternity was only as strong as the hands guarding it. Power and politics. The throne's fragile balance. The pharaoh was a god, but gods could bleed. His divinity rested on a seamless succession, a cosmic handoff from Horus, the living king, to Osiris, the dead. But the throne was a battlefield, its stability threatened by ambition, betrayal, and the human hunger for power. The harem conspiracy of Ramesses III around 1155 BCE is a stark example. Papyrus records, like the judicial papyrus of Turin, reveal a plot led by Queen Tai, a minor wife, to assassinate the pharaoh and crown her son Pentawere, the conspirators' wives, servants. Even magicians crafted wax figures, cast spells, and bribed guards. Ramesses III was killed, his throat likely slit, though his chosen heir, Ramesses IV, took the throne. Pentawere was forced to drink poison, his mummy wrapped without honors, a silent curse. This wasn't an isolated scandal. Succession was a cosmic tightrope. A weak king could destabilize Maat, inviting chaos if it to unravel the world. Hatshepsut, one of Egypt's few female pharaohs, ruled as a god-king, her statues bearded, her crown double. Her reign was prosperous, her monuments, like the Deir el-Bahari temple, breathtaking. Yet her stepson, Thutmose III, erased her name from history, defacing her images to restore the proper Horus-Osiris cycle. This wasn't just politics, it was theology, a correction to preserve the universe's balance. Priests, too, wielded dangerous power. The temple of Amun at Karnak, richer than the throne, controlled vast estates, granaries, and armies of scribes. By the 20th dynasty, high priests like Herhor crowned themselves kings, blurring the line between divine and mortal authority. Their wealth came from offerings meant for the gods, their influence from rituals meant for the pharaoh. When priests became rivals, the cosmic machine stuttered, their beauty carved in stone, but their lives bound by ritual. Her tomb in the Valley of the Queens, its walls painted with stars, chose her guiding her husband's soul. Yet she died young, perhaps in childbirth. Princes trained for war or priesthood, their lives tethered to the throne's needs. Tutankhamun, dead at 19, limped through life with a clubfoot, his tomb stocked with canes. His two stillborn daughters, mummified beside him, hint at the genetic toll of royal incest, a practice meant to preserve divine blood, but weakening the dynasty. To be divine was to be trapped. The people felt it too. Artisans at Deir el-Medina, crafting tombs, went on strike, the first recorded in history when grain payments lagged. Their pride and eternity didn't feed their families. Priests faced accusations of skimming offerings, their piety tainted by greed. Mourners, often women called chantresses of Isis, were paid to weep, their grief a performance for Maat. The machine of eternity was divine, but its gears were human, tired, flawed, sometimes broken. The decline, when eternity faltered, by the third intermediate period, around 1070 BCE, Egypt's eternal blueprint was unraveling. The Nile's floods grew erratic, crops failed, and foreign invasions, Libyans, Nubians, later Persians, drained the treasury. Temples, once economic powerhouses, struggled to fund rituals. Tombs were looted faster, and they could be sealed, their gold fueling black markets. Priests hid mummies in secret caches, like the one at Deir el-Bahari, hoping to save them from desecration. The Book of the Dead, once a royal privilege, spread to nobles, merchants, even scribes, diluting the Pharaohs' divine exclusivity. Corruption seeped deeper. Officials hoarded grain, priests sold amulets meant for the dead, and guards turned a blind eye for a cut of the loot. The economy of eternity, built on taxes and offerings, buckled under mismanagement. By the 21st dynasty, high priests like Benejamai ruled as quasi-kings, their mummies wrapped in gold stolen from older tombs. The Pharaoh's machine, meant to anchor the cosmos, was cannibalizing itself. Yet the decline wasn't total. Even as Egypt weakened, its death culture endured. The 22nd dynasty, founded by Libyan kings, adopted mummification and Osiris worship. The Nubian 25th dynasty built pyramids in Sudan, echoing Gizeh's glory. When Alexander the Great conquered Egypt in 332 BCE, his successors, the Ptolemies, embraced the old ways, mummifying their dead and chanting from Mat. The machine was battered, but its blueprint was etched too deep to erase. The cracks as legacy, these cracks robbery, intrigue, decline weren't failures, they were proof of ambition. Egypt didn't build eternity to be flawless, it built it to endure. Thieves stole gold, but spales remained carved in stone. Priests schemed, but myth held firm, chanted in temples. Pharaohs fell, but their names Khufu, Hatshepsut, Ramesses echoed in papyrus and memory. The Valley of the Kings, looted and weathered, still stands, its walls singing of defiance today. We know chaos too. We chase stability through wealth, status, or fleeting posts online, yet cracks appear scandals, failures, forgotten dreams. The Egyptians teach us that eternity isn't about avoiding flaws, it's about building through them. They carved their story knowing thieves would come, yet they carved anyway. Their tombs, even empty, speak louder than silence. Why this resonates. As you sit there, maybe scrolling under a dim screen, think about your own cracks. What breaks in your life? What do you rebuild? The Egyptians didn't hide their flaws, they wove them into their story, wrapping their fears in linen, carving their hopes in stone. They remind us that legacy isn't what you keep, it's what you leave. Cracks and all ... And part 5, we'll step into the final act, the legacy of Egypt's death culture, its echoes in Greece, Rome, and our modern world, and what it teaches us about facing mortality. Stay with us, the shadows are lifting. Welcome back, traveler. You've journeyed through Egypt's sands, stood before pyramids that pierced the sky, and descended into tombs where souls were launched into stars. In part 4, we saw the cracks in eternity, thieves, traitors, and a faltering empire that tested the Pharaoh's cosmic machine. Yet, even as Egypt fell, its vision of eternity didn't fade. It echoed across centuries. From Greek palaces to Roman graves to our modern screens, this is what the Pharaohs knew about death, Egypt's eternal blueprint. Part 5, the final chapter, where we trace the legacy of Egypt's death culture, its influence on the world, and the timeless lessons it whispers to us about facing our own mortality. Let's step into the light of their enduring story, the blueprint that survived. Egypt's death culture wasn't just rituals or tombs, it was a philosophy, a map for navigating mortality. The pyramids, mummies, and spales weren't about escaping death, but shaping it, turning the end into a beginning. When Egypt's power waned, conquered by Persians in 525 BC, Greeks in 330 BCE, Romans in 30 BCE, their ideas didn't vanish. They flowed like the Nile, carried by traders, scholars, and conquerors, reshaping the world's view of death. The Ptolemies, Greek rulers of Egypt after Alexander, were the first to inherit this blueprint. Cleopatra VII, the last Ptolemaic queen, was mummified, her tomb likely adorned with spells from the Book of the Dead. Her lover, Mark Antony, was buried in Egyptian style, his body wrapped to face the Duat. In Alexandria, a city of marble and papyrus, Egyptian myths met Greek philosophy. Osiris blended with Hades, god of the underworld, met echoed Plato's ideas of cosmic order. Temples to Isis spread across the Mediterranean, her cult thriving in Greece and Rome, her image carved with an ankh and sistrum. The Ptolemies didn't just rule Egypt, they became its priests, chanting for eternity in a Greek accent. The Romans were next, captivated by Egypt's mystique. By the 1st century CE, wealthy Romans in Egypt commissioned Fayum mummy portraits, lifelike faces painted on wood, attached to mummified bodies. These portraits, with their haunting eyes, merged Egyptian soulcraft with Roman realism, a testament to a culture that refused to fade. Even Roman emperors, like Augustus, adopted Egyptian symbols, erecting obelisks in Rome to echo Egypt's solar worship. The ankh, symbol of eternal life, found echoes in the Christian cross, its loop top a nod to immortality. The weighing of the heart, where truth balanced against the feather, resonated in Christian visions of judgment, where souls faced scales of sin and virtue. Egypt's influence wasn't just spiritual, it was practical. Mummification, with its precise organ removal and natron drying, taught early anatomists about the body. Herodotus, the Greek historian, described embalmers in 450 BCE with fascination, noting their surgical skill. Centuries later, Renaissance scholars unwrapped mummies, their linen revealing secrets of chemistry and preservation. Modern CT scans of mummies, like Tutankhamun's, uncovered diets, diseases, even DNA, proving the dead still speak. Egypt's death culture wasn't a relic, it was a foundation, shaping science, art, and faith. Egyptomania, the modern rediscovery. Egypt's death culture didn't stay in the past, it stormed the modern world. In 1798, Napoleon's expedition to Egypt sparked Egyptomania, a fever that gripped Europe. His scholars, armed with sketchbooks, cataloged temples and tombs, their drawings igniting imaginations. The Rosetta Stone, discovered in 1799, unlocked hieroglyphs in 1822, letting Egypt's dead tell their stories. Tombs were opened, mummies displayed in London and Paris, and the world fell in love with a civilization that defied time. By the 19th century, Egypt was everywhere. Victorian poets like Shelley wrote of Ozymandias, Ramesses II's statue, its ruins a meditation on fleeting power. Architects built Egyptian revival buildings, their columns lotus-shaped, their facades carved with ankhs. When Howard Carter opened Tutankhamun's tomb in 1922, the world gasped. His golden mask, its eyes inlaid with lapis, became a global icon, splashed across newspapers and inspiring Art Deco designs. Hollywood caught the fever, with films like The Mummy 1930 to turning mummies into monsters, and later The Mummy 1999 blending adventure with Egypt's mystique. These weren't accurate, they were dreams born from a culture that saw death as a story, not an end. Egypt's aesthetic still lingers. Fashion houses like Dior and Cleopatra's silhouette gold jewelry, coal-lined eyes. Video games like Assassin's Creed Origins recreate tombs with eerie precision. Even tattoos, scarabs, horses are modern spales, etched to defy forgetting. Egypt's death culture isn't just history. It's a pulse beating in our art, our stories, our search for meaning. Lessons from the Pharaohs, a map for mortality. What did the Pharaohs know about death? They knew it was a journey, not a wall. They didn't fear the grave, they feared oblivion, a second death where no one spoke your name. Their tombs, spales, and golden masks were tools to navigate the do-it, to write their story in eternity's ink. Their lessons, carved in stone and papyrus, still guide us. Preparation. The Pharaoh's life was a rehearsal for death, every ritual a step toward readiness. From dawn purifications to tomb carvings, they blend with precision. Today, we don't mummify bodies, but we plan wills, legacies, stories we tell our children. The Egyptians ask, what's your book of the dead? What spells will guide your soul? Maybe it's a letter to your family, a project you finish, a memory you share. Preparation isn't about fear, it's about purpose. Resilience. Their machine had cracks, thieves, traitors, invasions, yet they built on. Artisans at Deir el Medina, striking for grain, still carved for eternity. Priests, despite corruption, chanted for Osiris. Tombs, looted and broken, survived to tell their tale. Tutankhamun's tomb, nearly empty, still shines. They teach us that legacy isn't perfection, it's persistence. Your dreams may crack, your plans may falter, but to keep carving, the stone endures. Community. No pharaoh rose alone. Artisans, priests, mourners, guards, they were gears in the machine. The Shabti figurines working the afterlife's fields were symbols of shared labor. Today, we build eternity together through families, friends, followers who share our stories. The Egyptians knew your name lives only if others speak it. Who's speaking yours? Who's in your crew? Hoeing the fields of your legacy. Duty. Their tombs weren't grim, they were vibrant, painted with stars, lotuses, and gods. Death wasn't a shadow, it was a canvas. They faced mortality with creativity, wrapping their fears in gold, their hopes in spales. They remind us to make our endings beautiful through art, words, or acts of love. What will your canvas hold? A song, a painting, a kind word that lingers. Memory. The Egyptians' greatest fear wasn't death, it was being forgotten. They carved their names in stone, chanted them in temples, wove them into myths. Today, we chase memory too through photos, posts, legacies. The Pharaohs teach us that memory is navigation. A name spoken aloud outlasts gold. What name will you leave? What story will echo, facing our own do-it? As you watch this, maybe with a phone glowing or a coffee gone cold, picture your own do-it. We don't weigh our hearts against feathers, but we carry scales, regrets, dreams, choices. The Egyptians didn't promise immortality. They promised a journey. Their mummies, spales, and pyramids are messages in a bottle, tossed into time's river, telling us, you can't stop the current, but you can steer. Write your story, carve your name, make it beautiful. Our modern dude looks different. We post stories that vanish in 24 hours, build profiles that outlast us, write code or songs to say, "I was here." The Egyptians would see our skyscrapers as pyramids, our servers as tombs, our hashtags as spales. They'd nod at our fear of fading, whispering, "Build it well, make it last." Whether it's a video you share, a child you raise, or a dream you chase, you're crafting your own eternity, the eternal echo. The Valley of the Kings is quiet now, its cliffs worn by wind and time. But the story isn't over. Every mummy scanned, every hieroglyph read, every tourist gazing at a sarcophagus keeps the pharaohs alive. Their names Khufu, Hatshepsut, Ramesses, Tutankhamun are still spoken, their boss soaring. They won, not by escaping death, but by shaping it. Their tombs, even looted, are louder than silence. Their spales, even faded, still sing. This series began with a question. What did the pharaohs know about death? They knew it was a doorway, a challenge, a chance to write your story in eternity's ink. They knew eternity isn't a gift, it's a project built with intention, labor, and love. As we close, ask yourself, what's your pyramid? What's your spell? What will you carve into time's walls? Thank you for joining us on this journey through Egypt, eternal blueprint. If this moved you, share it, speak our name, keep the story alive. Subscribe, hit that bell, and let's keep exploring the mysteries that make us human. Until next time, keep navigating your do-it. This is the end of what the pharaohs knew about death, Egypt's eternal blueprint. Stay curious.